Hey everyone, welcome to DadsDen Pop Culture. And today we're going to be talking about a French action comedy, one of a series called Fantomas. Now, about a month or two ago, I was just wandering around Tubi looking for something new to watch, something I'd never seen. And I actually stumbled upon the third film in this series, Fantomas versus Scotland Yard. I watched it. I really enjoyed it. It was very funny. So I soon found the other two, also on Tubi, watched those, also enjoyed them, thought it'd be a good one to review. Now, Fantomas, the character, dates back to 1911, appeared in 32 volumes by authors Marcel Alain and Pierre Souvestre. He is a classic of French crime, a criminal genius, impossible to catch, and a lot of those elements appear in this 1960s film, with the addition of high-tech devices and a comedic detective, Paul Jouve. So let's dive into the first of the three films, Fantomas, from 1964. We'll run through, we'll talk about the plot, the characters, the comedy, the action, and the really enjoyable cinematography. And at a certain point, I will put up a spoiler alert, but I think we can at least do the opening bits without having to worry so much about spoilers. So, let's get right into it. We begin with Gaumont, and an important note for my viewers, Fantomas is subtitled. It is in French. And I know there are folks out there who do not like subtitles, don't want to have to read a movie. I don't generally mind them, but there are times where I'm not in the mood for it either. But given the comedy angle of this film, especially Louis de Funès, who plays Commissioner Jouve, I think you really want to hear how he delivers the lines, you know, the sound, etc. I think you want that to really appreciate the comedy of what he's doing. Getting somebody to dub over it after the fact might kind of ruin some of that, might take some of the funniness away. So I get it, but I would urge you to give these a try. Even though they are subtitled, I found them really, really enjoyable. Well, we open the film with this fountain, and if I really knew anything about Paris, I might be able to identify it for you, but I don't. We have a nice bit of music going on. It's upbeat. Like I said, it is an action comedy, so that's kind of the vibe that they're going for. As traffic moves through the roundabout, we focus on one car in particular, and it stops in front of Van Cleef and Arpels, obviously named for Lee Van Cleef, the great actor. No. It's a very famous place to buy jewelry. A woman and a man get out of the car, obviously wealthy. They have come for jewelry, and jewelry happens to be a particular favorite of Fantomas. Several pieces are shown, and the distinguished-looking man, Lord Shelton, appreciates them and says, casually, he will have them all. The woman permits a knowing smile. The bill comes to 5.5 million new francs, or francs, and shall I have them delivered? No, I will take them. And though we won't get used to Shelton's face, his voice, pay attention to his voice. You're going to hear that voice again in this film. So with the deal completed, the couple leave, the jeweler admires the check, and then the writing disappears before his eyes, to be replaced with Fantomas. And so we roll the credits. Jean Marais has a double role in this film as both Fantomas and as the journalist Fendor, who pursues him, does a great job, does some pretty decent stunt work in it. As I said, Louis de Funès plays Commissioner Jouve, basically the inspector here. Very funny. A highlight for me for the entire series. He plays a sort of a stock character of sorts, where the protagonist is, if not a villain, then a reformed villain. The Saint, Boston Blackie, the Lone Wolf come to mind as American films. Those were all programmers from the 1940s. And so he is the bullheaded, take no prisoners inspector who's coming after them. And of course, he has an assistant. Both of them are comedic in this one. And really, there's some very, very funny stuff between the two of them. Really make it worth watching. Mylène Demongeot plays Helene Gurn, Fandor's girlfriend and photographer. And then our title. Our director is André, and I don't know how to pronounce this name. I'm going to be honest. Hunebelle? I don't know. I admit it. I am not a speaker of French, but he, interesting guy, was a master glassmaker as well as a director who worked often with Jean Marais. He did film noir. He did swashbucklers. He did spy pictures. And you also, by the way, during this whole intro, get a really nice tour of 1964 Paris. A very, very cool city. So we next see a large crowd gathered outside a television store. Well, you get a lot of that back in the day. Televisions were still relatively new, especially color TVs. When they came around, you would have these displays in the windows of stores because you didn't really have the big, electronics kind of big box stores that you'd get much later. They put all the TVs in the window, and you'd often see crowds gathered watching TV because they couldn't afford one themselves. It was like their only access to the thing. So we get this large crowd watching one of our heroes, Juve, counsel the people of France that Fantomas' days are numbered. And sure, he's killed people, but many more people die in traffic accidents. So don't worry so much about this guy. And then a car roars up and the crowd flees and a bomb is thrown through the window. But Juve's image is undeterred. Yes, you can count on me. There's no reason to be worried. So I like this opening up to this point. It's good. You get to see, even though you don't know it at the time for sure, when it's first happening, you get to see Fantomas in action. Okay? Master of disguise. He's got the fake check going, etc. He's very bold. He's very confident. And we get a moment to see Commissioner Juve here and get an idea of what he's like and of the comedy you're going to be seeing from him and from the film. It's not outrageous comedy. It's not super, super slapsticky or anything like that. And it's not super broad comedy. They keep it sort of in a little bit and it can be very, very funny. So we now meet our other two heroes. They're watching that newscast of Juve in the bar. And the man with the dark tie there, hands in pockets, is Fandor, Jean Marais. He doesn't seem too impressed with the commissioner. He laughs at the police, call the reporters irresponsible when he's saying things like that. At the bar, we have his girlfriend and photographer, Helene, played by Mylène Demongeot. I looked up how to pronounce that, and I think I still probably butchered it. But perhaps he is irresponsible, as the latest headline from his paper claims that Fantomas does not exist. He is just made up by the police and government as a scapegoat for all of their problems, all the things they do wrong, all the things they don't solve. Now, Helene thinks the story is idiotic. And damn, worth the early 60s, just a great era for casual cool. Look at the clothes. Look at the hair. You kind of got this period. It was going to get, weird by the late 60s, right? It was going to get a lot more outrageous. You had some sort of outrageous stuff at one point too, kind of in the 50s. This finds this nice happy medium. So one of the things to enjoy in the movie is just the look of the thing and the design. It's really, really, really nice. So Helene says something to the effect that if Fantomas did not exist, Fandor would have to invent him. Fandor likes this idea. Nothing like a good hoax, especially a little comedic hoax, to sell papers. So cut to a cemetery and a shadowy figure moving through it and then posing. And this is Fandor dressed as what his idea of Fantomas is, and Helene is on hand to take photos, and then disappears the next day in the papers as a tell-all interview with Fantomas. It's very popular, and we see these scenes of different people reacting to this. And oh, by the way, This little asshole subtitle almost killed me when I read it. I was not ready for it. Well, Jouve, of course, is PO'd, although his assistant, played by Jacques Dynam, also a highlight of the film, seems to think it's a little bit funny. But while Fandor and his editor congratulate themselves, Jouve arrives to chew them out. If he gets proof the article is fake, they're going to hear a big boom, followed by a big boom as a bomb goes off in the editor's office, which lands our heroes in the hospital. But you can see how this is played for laughs, right? It's an explosion, but you can see you got the leg up, etc. There's going to be some, good action in this one with some stakes, but it is an action comedy. So they do keep it sort of light, kind of enjoyable for you. Once out of the hospital, Jouve comes to the conclusion that Fantomas is linked to Fandor. If they watch the journalist, they will get Fantomas, and he may be onto something. As he stakes out Fandor's apartment, the journalist arrives home and finds a note from Fantomas taped to his door. He thinks the whole thing is a joke. Somebody's putting him on. He enters the apartment, and again, just look at the decor, look at the design. This is always important. You can take this stuff for granted, but it is a way to visually cue you in on a character, who that character is, their personality, if it's done well. And I think you do get a little more of an idea of who this guy is. It's also kind of amazing how small the place is, given the fact that he's, seems to be a pretty well-respected reporter, journalist, probably gets paid pretty well. Well, while Fandor makes himself a drink, which involves some sort of powder, so I'm not sure what it is, Jouve is accosted outside by the police, who think he's a tramp. So he was basically dressed up as a tramp, checking out the apartment. They think he's really a tramp. This reminds me a bit of Inspector Clouseau and his disguises in the Pink Panther films. And Jouve will use a few goodies during the series. The pirate disguise with the false leg that's really a machine gun in the second film is probably my favorite. Well, Jouve is indeed arrested by those police officers, so he's not around to see what happens next. Fandor gets a call on the phone. In a few moments, Fantomas will call for you. And a second later, a hand reaches up from behind and conks him on the head. Let's put the spoiler sign up now from this point on, as we get a little bit more into the plot of the film. So, Fandor awakens in Fantomas's lair. And it brings to my mind the subterranean lair of the Phantom of the Opera a little bit. So he wanders around a bit, he's confused, and then the sound of organ music, again, aiming towards that Phantom of the Opera look, a panel slides open, an elevator descends, and Fantomas appears. Despite the mask obviously concealing Marais' identity as Fantomas, he does a very different voice as this character. It's deeper, and it's very effective. And here Fandor gets dressed down for making a mockery of Fantomas with his article, and this begins a fight scene between Fandor and Fantomas' thugs. It establishes Fandor's fighting ability, which is, quite impressive, and the fact that Fantomas is even better. Fandor finally, goes right at him, punches him in the stomach a couple times, and Fantomas doesn't even move. It doesn't even seem to affect him at all. So, watch out for this guy. He's not only a criminal genius, he's pretty damn tough as well. So Fantomas now informs Fandor that he works for him. Due to this mockery, he will publish a new article confessing his deception, and if it is not to Fantomas' liking, he will suffer the worst of tortures. It's a wonderful monologue and really establishes the Fantomas character, just the way he speaks, the way he thinks. Fantomas then brands Fandor as his property. You see the F on his chest. And Fandor passes out from the pain. He awakens back in his apartment to the sound of the doorbell ringing. It's Helene. She's worried about him. He thinks that it's all been a dream. Jouve, meanwhile, spent the night in jail, and he's very happy about that. And while he's complaining, Fandor and Helene soon discover that it was not a dream. There's the brand. When someone knocks on the door, they fear it is Fantomas. But it is only Jouve. Fandor's arrested and taken in for questioning, and Jouve, tries all the little tricks, eating and drinking in front of him, even though he hasn't eaten for a couple days. It all fails. Fandor, very cool. And again, you're getting insights into who these characters are and what they're going to maybe do later, how they're going to react to things. And it just drives Jouve mad, though. They can't break this guy. He's just so damn confident. It's kind of like Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny. It's a very similar relationship. Well, Fandor goes back to his cell, where his editor meets with him to let him know that he will personally write the article that Fantomas requires, and their lawyer will have him out by tomorrow. Well, when Fandor is released the next day, Jouve is on the case, staking him out, waiting. But Fandor has his own problems. The promised article paints Fantomas as a raving maniac. So Fandor's like, oh God, I'm in trouble. Hails a cab for the newspaper office, and when Jouve attempts to follow, his car falls apart. Fantomas. What are the bounds of his abilities? How can he be stopped? You're getting a thing. He's always a step or two ahead. Always a step or two ahead. But Fandor's cab is not even a cab at all. He is once again in the clutches of Fantomas. Well, big trouble here. Fandor does his best to explain the situation, but Fantomas isn't having it. He summons Lady Beltham, who is sort of his lady love at the moment. As punishment for Fandor's failure, he will be forced to collaborate on Fantomas's masterpiece, the creation of a perfect human being. This will require Fandor's brain. Lady Beltham arrives. She was the wife of Lord Beltham, who conveniently disappeared. The scene, I think, is meant to introduce the lady, but also to make Fandor understand that she and Fantomas murdered her husband, and to show how casually Fantomas does such a thing. He needs to understand the danger that he's in. I mean, this is a guy who will take him out without even blinking an eye. To Fantomas's ends, he will first destroy Fandor's name among the public and his closest friends, such that they will rejoice at his death. He will commit dastardly crimes using Fandor's voice and image. And at this, he takes off his mask and reveals Fandor's face underneath it, which is pretty handy since Jean Marais plays both roles. And this, of course, you understand from the beginning, that was him, wearing a mask, playing the old British gentleman who stole the jewelry. So he's an absolute master at this. And this is a big part of his shtick in the movies, is his ability to take on the appearance and voice of pretty much anybody he wants to. It's always done perfectly. It's very reminiscent of, say, Mission Impossible. It was a weird trope from the 60s. The idea that with some kind of a rubberized mask and just a little work, you could look exactly like another person. It never looked like you were wearing a mask. They did a lot of that back in the day. So Fandor is then instructed not to attempt an escape. The photoelectric cells and his guards will thwart him, and then he leaves. Well, in the meantime, Jouve has been busy challenging Fantomas to steal a diamond collection. And so he shall. This begins a nice sequence of Fantomas using distraction and sleeping gas to steal the diamond collection. He runs the police ragged. In the process, Helene is kidnapped. And it culminates in a rooftop chase between Jouve and Fantomas, of course, who looks like Fandor wearing like a fake mustache and beard. And this is like, it's on a real rooftop. I mean, it's a beautiful shot. You see the Eiffel Tower in the background. And Marais doing it. I mean, so there's some decent stunt work that he does here. Well, ultimately, Jouve loses this race. But the dude is just a bulldog. He does not give up. You see him hanging there from that thing. We get a really cool helicopter escape from Fantomas. Nice practical stunts throughout. Well, back in Fantomas' hideout, Fandor has been watching this play out on the news. He knows Helene has been kidnapped, and Jouve thinks that she's his accomplice. Fantomas arrives to gloat, and boy, does he gloat. But Fandor pulls a nice trick while he's doing so. While he's toying with the idea of replacing Lady Beltham with Helene, Fandor manages to clue Beltham in with the intercom system, takes the phone off, presses the button. Okay. So Fantomas departs to deal with the half-wit Jouve, who he's had enough of. He's going to take his face for his next set of exploits. The next day, there's a crowd lining up for a film about Fantomas at a theater. I liked the graphics on that a lot. Fantomas and his boys roll up and disperse the crowd with a little machine gun fire and a smoke bomb, notably injuring nobody, but of course, he's doing it with Jouve's face. So Jouve is immediately on the job. They've rounded up the witnesses, and they're all gathered in a room collectively to determine what the culprit looked like using an identikit picture. I don't think I've ever heard that term before, but basically, you have slides with different facial features. They go through, is that right? Is that right? Okay. Well, ultimately, what they do is they identify Jouve as the criminal. He thinks this is some kind of joke. He's PO'd about the whole thing. So this launches another very funny sequence where Jouve is like, I'm going home. I'm getting some sleep. And he thinks he hears gunfire outside. By the way, grabs that gun from under his pillow. This is France, not Britain. So the French are cool with running around with guns, at least at this point in time. Well, it turns out to be a car backfiring. He yells at the guy, throws a slipper at him. And the slipper looks like it only flies about 3 or 4 feet. And this will be important later. So frazzled, he returns to bed, but he puts in these earplugs that are supremely effective. He can't hear a thing with those things in his ears. We're setting things up here. In the meantime, his doppelganger is out robbing a casino. Good use of makeup there to make him look just enough off that you know it isn't really Jouve, even though obviously it's the same actor playing him. And importantly, he leaves his calling card behind. Fantomas. He wants people to know that Jouve is really Fantomas. That's the whole plan here. Well, when the report comes in, Jouve's men decide to report to him, but he can't hear the phone ringing or them knocking on the door when they actually drive out there. And they, of course, notice a slipper on the ground. They think it's a sign of foul play. They climb up through the window. His assistant does anyways. So while Jouve is eating breakfast in bed, just happy as a clam, he cannot hear his sergeant breaking a window, climbing in the hall, or knocking on his bedroom door. So when the sergeant shows up in the room staring at him, and he suddenly sees it, it scares the hell out of him. It's a great reaction from Funès here. Just his little scream when he sees the dude. It's comedic, but it's also so real. So the sergeant begins explaining, and there's no sound, and Jouve thinks, like, this dude's screwing with him. Very funny, just the look on his face, and kind of breaks the fourth wall looking at the crowd. Not 100%, but kind of there. They finally figure out, I have these things in my ears. Well, they finally get down to the scene of the crime, where everybody immediately identifies Jouve as, again, the culprit, and this time he is arrested. And now he's on the other side of the police interrogation with his assistant, Michel, giving him the 5th degree. When the fingerprints match his, he goes slightly mad. He goes, well, maybe I am Fantomas. He doesn't know what to do with all this. He's not an imaginative man, really. So now, to the sound of organ music, we get this long, sweeping shot of a rugged, beautiful landscape. Finally, we key in on this lone car on a hilltop. And I'll tell you one thing about this film. It is not in a hurry. It doesn't lag, but it takes its time. Good pace, but it takes its time, and I like that. It's kind of like comfort food. I mean, I've only watched these things now, this one a couple times. I bought the DVDs because I'm like, I could definitely see wanting to watch these again. Just, a kind of lazy Sunday. Let's throw one of these discs in. Let's watch it, maybe while I'm doing things, now that I've seen it a couple times. You get the idea. But I like that. I like the pacing of the film. It works. It's not frantic. So here we see the fruits of Fandor's earlier actions. Lady Beltham has apparently released him and Helene into the wilderness in this car. Hurrah, they don't know where the hell they are. But Lady Beltham is a murderess, so they have no breaks. A wild ride down the mountainside results with a whole lot of close scrapes until they wind up in a farmyard alive, but with very little car remaining. It's a good sequence. And again, they do some good action stuff along with the comedy in here. It balances very nicely. Well, now Fandor and Helene find themselves being interrogated by Michel. He is unimpressed with their story. It's so outrageous, which results in Fandor being put in the same cell as Juve. But Fantomas is not finished with them yet. A guard appears to move them to another cell, and we all kind of recognize who that guard is. It's really Fantomas, still scheming, still taunting. They are transferred to a different car and speed off through the countryside, destination unknown. In the meantime, their disappearance is discovered, which leads to the police finally realizing that Fandor and Juve are innocent. Helene wants them to hurry the hell up, though, because her boyfriend is in danger. Like, get out there and find him. Well, on the road, Fantomas' car is spotted by a helicopter. A roadblock has been set up, but Fantomas evades it. He's got some real driving skills here. This begins a major chase sequence, which really is going to run till the end of the film. And it's a good one. Could have maybe been a little bit tighter, trimmed a little bit, not overly so, but just there's a few places where you go, could have knocked a couple seconds off here, a couple seconds off there. Well, Helene is in the helicopter monitoring the chase. Kind of reminds me of Anne Margaret in the helicopter at the end, the race in Viva Las Vegas at the end. At one point, Fantomas pulls a lever and releases an oil slick. Very cool. We are in the James Bond period here, so there's a little James Bond in this thing. And because of the oil slick, takes this one bike cop out in a pretty nice stunt. Bike hits that rock, dude flips over it, kind of like in, what was it, one of the Mad Max movies, where it was kind of an accident. You get something similar. And it does occur to me also, there's no music in this chase sequence, which is odd. Usually you would use music for something like that. They keep it quiet. You just have the cars. You have people talking. Well, another bike cop goes into a ditch. Now he'll recover and get back out and join the chase again. Just one is left in hot pursuit, though. The final bike cop opens fire on the car, so he's got his hands on a machine gun while he's driving. Really cool. But the car is armored. Fantomas thinks, again, of everything. He's always a step ahead. Fandor finally decides to act, lifts his legs up, and kicks Fantomas in the back of the head, causing him to swerve and ultimately go off the side of the road. But the pursuing gendarme also wrecks in the process. Leaving his prisoners, Fantomas flees on the downed gendarme's bike. But soon, Fandor and Juve are in pursuit, stealing the bike of that other gendarme who had to catch up to them. So there's obviously an element of comedy here with them, Juve riding behind him on the bike. But there's also some really good stunt work. He's going off-road here, although he does a couple jumps where it's obviously not another stuntman on the bike, but a dummy. But, it's okay. Well, at any rate, coming to a bridge under which there's a passing train, Fantomas gets off his bike, jumps onto the train. Fandor and Juve follow, Juve a little bit less successfully. There's a chase atop the train with a little comedy relief from Juve through here. Bear in mind, Marais is playing both parts and seems to be doing many of his own stunts. So he had to do some of these moves like a couple different times, once as Fandor, once as Fantomas. Fantomas unhooks some of the cars, leaving Fandor and Juve behind, but not permanently, as Fandor jumps off the train. Fantomas, in the meantime, gets to the engine, commandeers it, and he's going full speed. But Fandor and Juve, they're not done yet. They steal a woman's car at a gas station. He picks up Juve. Off they go. Now it's car versus train. Well, getting near his stop, Fantomas leaps from the train. And who knows what it might end up hitting. But again, this is a guy who doesn't care about human life. Makes his way into a cove and contacts his men, but he is spotted from the air by Helene. Fantomas now makes his escape by a boat. So contacts, they get the boat there. There he goes. Again, this dude, he's got it all planned. Everything's planned. Our heroes arrive, seemingly too late to stop him. But then the helicopter arrives. It lands. There's still a chance. They leave a very angry Helene on the beach. Fandor and Juve pursuing Fantomas out to the sea. Fandor makes an amazing descent onto the moving boat. And like I said, they really did not skimp on the stunt work for this one. So Fandor doesn't make it. He lands on the back of the boat and falls backwards into the sea. Fantomas is laughing at him. He's then picked up by his men. Lady Beltham is there in his mini sub. Juve makes a bold attempt to board the sub, which Fantomas finds amusing. I wanted to show that shot, though, because that's really, really, really cool. And so he dives, gives Juve a dunking, while Fandor swims over. The two of them now floating in the sea, but ultimately they find themselves saved by Helene in a very small raft. We get them trying to get into it, flipping it over. So we end up with some laughter, with Juve refusing to quit, still screaming even over the ending, which sets up, well, more Fantomas movies, and thank goodness it does, because, like I said, it's an awful lot of fun. Again, I know some people don't like to deal with subtitles. I get it, but these are really fun films. 1964, so we're just a little bit after Bond, actually a little bit after the first Pink Panther film too. The trilogy is going to go like, I think 64, 65, 66. 66, we get Modesty Blaze. We get the Batman TV show and movie. You get the vibe going throughout all of this. And if you like those movies, you might want to check out Fantomas. Really well done, well acted. It's really beautifully shot, nice design work, and it is genuinely funny. And I know sometimes, the French, there's the Jerry Lewis thing. It's going to be really, over the top, outright. It's not in this thing. It's clever comedy, little tiny bit of slapstick, but it's clever comedy, really worth your while. You might want to check out Fantomas, and if you dig it, you can watch the other two as well. Well, let me know what you think in the comments if you have ever seen Fantomas, if you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, I'd love to hear from you either way. If you enjoyed this little review of Fantomas, please give it a like. Maybe think of subscribing to my channel. I do a whole lot of pop culture reviews of all sorts. Maybe share with a friend if you think they might enjoy it. I would really appreciate that. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.